I'm glad that went out on the phone call.
I'm freezing. I've had like yesterday after I got done with the snow, I had like blue color under the nails and took like an hour for it to come back circulation wise. No, it wasn't that bad, but it was cold. It was cold. Ugh.
I have 2 pairs of wool socks.
Oh, no, the only one I got the good boots on today.
That's like push a button and it heats up.
Oh yes, your plug-in one, your rechargeable.
Yeah.
I need to get one of those.
They're awesome, especially when you leave the house.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am going to call the meeting into order. It is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, now 4:33 p.m.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
This meeting has been like hopscotch
I
on
was
the
about to
calendar.
say.
My God.
I was like, for the record, how many times did we said? That's good. That's well, okay. First order of business is to approve the minutes from December.
I make a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Dom hit me first.
Dom,
Got
second.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And then just moving on to the admin report, there's what I'll say is, I think our primary goal for the day is to approve our 2023 annual resolution.
Yep.
Which does give us an opportunity to consider various positions on the board, to change our meeting time.
Yep. Please. Please.
Or we can, if that's not explicitly spelled out in the resolution, we can still keep that matter up. And so that's one thing we need to do today. Another thing we need to do today is convene a mini audit committee meeting. In the wake of the annual resolution, so we can define who's on that committee. And then for my purposes, one thing I want to tell you about today is a grant opportunity that has to do with the imperiled urban renewal records archive that has been in the Dunn warehouse and then was in City Hall's basement for about a year and is now in the basement of the library. I took Ravonda to see those records.
Yeah.
Did they have that like, I just picture like the smell of my grandfather's basement where they're like semi-musty, like sitting in the box. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say if your grandfather's basement had been
Waterlogged?
flooded.
Yeah, that too. Yep.
Yeah. And do you want to say a little bit more? Do you want to describe what you saw, or?
I mean,
It's dire.
yeah, certainly. Yeah.
I mean, I think what's important is that the different kinds of, so we went through, so at the end of 2021, I went with an archivist or a historian and who specializes in urban renewal archives to go through the pile of records in the Dunn and pull out anything that looked like it could be historically significant. And then we housed those. It took us about a year to regroup, and then we had a 2-day work party at the library where we masked up and wore gloves and went through on like a folder level and pulled out incredibly resourceful maps. We set aside things like duplicate application files, demolition contracts, various like case files related to different properties and their demolition or their, so there's some files that we were able to sort of peel apart as not historically significant. All the payroll records, for example, from the 70s. But what we are most excited to have appears to be a really complete stack of appraisals for every property that was, purchased and condemned in the urban renewal process, with photographs and detailed notes. In addition, we also appear to have a complete set of household surveys. So for every household that was displaced because of urban renewal, a caseworker who was employed by this agency went out and interviewed the head of household about their employment, their health, their finances, their children, their dreams, you know, if they wanted to change careers, where
What
would they
their
go?
home looked like, what the condition of their homes were.
They made private notes about if the homes were clean, if the interviewee was clean, things like that, that were pretty common around these kinds of like invasive processes in the 60s. And yeah, I mean, they're moving, right, Ramonda? It's like a really valuable and sensitive.
Is
like,
it,
treasure.
my question, like, is it salvageable?
Yeah, oh yeah, all
Okay,
those
good.
things.
That's what I'm
They're
worried
something-
about, where like we got like a name and then the rest of it's like water stained to the point where we can't read it, or like, are they actually like in decent condition where we can get them scanned and digitized?
Yeah,
Some are.
yeah.
Okay.
Most of those two types of files so there's the appraisal records.
Yep,
There's appraisal records at various parts of the process too, because they did redevelopment appraisals as well. The surveys and the are sensitive, right? These are like records of this interaction that, you know.
private records.
Yeah, it's private records. However, a case can be made that those surveys can and should be digitized and anonymized, right? So certain kinds of data.
Well, I was gonna say, so what was the year on them though? Because isn't there like, aren't we past like that date where they could be opened up to the public? Like, isn't it like 30 years?
No, I think it's a good bit longer than
It
that,
is?
just
Okay.
based on like census records, but it's either like 70 or 100
Oh,
years or something
alright.
like that. Yeah, so it is longer than this.
But I agree, then like digitized so that they can come to light when the time, yeah.
That's right. The library has been pulling down a grant from state archives, a sort of mini grant source called Consider the Source, to do some preliminary scanning. And so that has nothing to do with our bank account, and they are just like managing some of the scanning of those records and the safe, secure housing of those scans, and like the file organization and stuff like that as like a first step, which really helped us make the time to go through all of the work and like let me get paid like, you know, $20 an hour to do some of that work. But what comes next is more complicated, and there is a grant that's due on March 1st. It's the Local Government Records Management Improvement Fund grant. This agency applied for, this agency received funds from that source. It comes from the state archive, right? We got a successful grant, I believe in 2012, 2013. And that was when Sheena Salvino was the director of the agency, and most of the money was spent on shuffling records back and forth from the Dunn warehouse. And at first I was like, I see no evidence that she did anything with the money that would pay for her time. But then when I went with some of these archivists to visit the basement of 1 North Front Street, where HCDPA used to be headquartered when we had shared services with HDC. And there are a lot of records there that belong to this agency that are more contemporary, right? So active loan files are now with me, but would have been housed there. Or more recent property transactions, more recent grant activity. So the records that we are now trying to save were actually slated for destruction.
Seriously?
I think so. But we're set aside as disposable, and then that process of actually approving the destruction of records never took place, I think, because there was still.
Can we do a resolution that like just stops and requires them to be held in perpetuity?
We don't need to. They are, we could do some other things, but if it had ever gotten to the stage where Tracy would have reviewed the records, it's very likely that would have stopped, because the state archives has a record. I mean, we could do a resolution where we adopt the records retention policy required by the state archives.
I think we should, Chris, is that something that we can do for the next meeting? Get
yeah, so Sarah's right. The correct procedure for records management is to there's a state archives creates a records management procedure for public agencies. And so Sarah, if you want to pull that down, then and they're slightly different for different types of agencies. So, you know, you'll have to look at the one that's appropriate for you. But that would be fine to adopt that as a policy. I would never adopt a policy saying you have to keep every piece of paper. That will drive you bananas. But the records management procedure identifies what documents are kept for what period of time.
I'll just show you. Sorry, yeah. So we're looking, so it's called, and I can pull it up. So now it's shared on the screen and you won't really be able to read it very well here, but. So we're on this archives, you know, the New York State Archives website. This is their, it's the local government schedule 1. This is their, you know, this is new as of last year. So they've updated it. And previously, this is what, if you really look together at the old grant application, that's what we would have been using this kind of terminology. But if you come down here to community development, urban renewal. So this is where, so for example, any sort of master documents that summarize the work or reports or sort of large scale documentation has a permanent retention schedule. The applications themselves, like, so what we sent to the US government has a permanent retention schedule. Denied applications, 3 years, different financial records and financial reports, studies have a shorter retention, you know, 6 years, etc. Then case files. So this is a lot of what we're talking about. We have property acquisition case files. We have purchase and resale case files. Final reports have a permanent retention schedule. So anyway, so if we make a resolution that adopts the local government schedule LGS1 as like our records retention schedule, we need to do this if we are to apply for the local government records management improvement fund grant, which is due at the end of next month. So
I would make a motion that we adopt the local government schedule.
Seconded.
great, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Let me stop sharing.
Now, are there any documents that we're aware of in that, call it pile that we've got, that fall outside of any of those protected categories that we need to do something to make sure that, like, in whole, we hold?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But they're not at any risk right now, but I can revisit that if we come back to it.
Okay.
So consider the source. There's about $3,000 in funding so far that the library has been authorized to use to scan these records. Some of that means that some sort of non-personal information containing records.
Sorry. Good catch, though.
Good catch. We spilled coffee for those at home.
Mike, it's okay. Michael's redoing the floor.
Are you?
On the weekends, he's in here, like hardwood floor, tiles. It actually looks a lot better with them down. No, it's so much bigger in here.
I have mixed feelings about.
You missed one.
So Scooby-Doo's cartoons, I mean, eyes always follow you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow, it's my 4:30. Our moods are chipper.
See, this is like a non-crazy workday thing. Chris is just like, why are we on a 4:30?
Speak for yourselves, please.
I suppose I'm curious if we need to pass a resolution that's endorsing a partnership with the library on some of this labor.
We would want some sort of MOU, yeah.
Okay. We can do that. I mean, for the local government records management improvement fund, I don't think the way that would work is we would apply as an individual agency. Or an
To the library.
No, to the state archives.
Okay.
It's up to $75,000 per project. There are lots of different project categories. By lots, I mean like 5. The ones that are relevant to us, I think, is really just the historical records category. Previously, we had applied under the inactive records category, and that just gives you, that's a way to do like a needs assessment, storage. You could even, you know, buy shelving from the prisons and get an engineer to look at your room to see if it can take the volume of weight, things like that. what we're doing would be different. And in February meeting, I can show the board a drafted outline of the application, but I believe the point would strictly be around digitization and then hosting a community input, a set of community roundtables that seek input from the community around what to do or how to engage these records, certain kinds of programming. You can apply for funds. The archives, I think, has a tight, relationship with the different publicly funded educational, the schools, public libraries. There's a professional development, something called BOCES that I don't know. So there's different outlets that are preferred, but it's absolutely a plausible, funding proposal to host, create a working group, for example, to develop public facing presentations of the material in the archives, including to, for example, you could get funding to scan everything and then digitize the metadata, right? So then you could create a statistical analysis.
And it's searchable and all of that.
Right.
Yeah. So this is where the MOU comes in though, because if we've got the library doing it, we apply as the grant
Agency.
recipient,
And
and
then
then
we
they
could
would have to
subgrant.
MOU to
Right.
them as administrator.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. And so I've been working with Brenda Schufeld at the library, and we would probably keep working together on those sorts of things. So they would pay for my time relative to that, and then any other person that we might contract in.
Are there photos in these files?
Yeah,
Mhm.
of every single property.
Would the library have any interest
They do, yeah,
in, I think that's great to bring that to the public.
yeah.
So that-
Unfortunately, the physical files are basically, they need to be destroyed, but so
Yeah.
this is, we would still be meeting our retention schedule if we had a digital copy that was held in.
Absolutely.
Right, just so you're aware, the city is also applying to LDR, whatever but it's for an inventory project. rather than a File scanning.
Yeah. And previously, the application we made about 8 years ago or 10 years ago was actually from the city.
Mhm.
But HCDPA is able to apply on our own.
How big is your project?
It's probably gonna be about 25 to 30,000.
And our project ballpark?
I would less than 20.
So why don't we put it together and go for like the maximum to show that as a city, we're applying for both.
That's possible. I don't know that that gives us an advantage, but we can look into it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have to look at the requirements for the application itself, if it's possible to have two separate projects underneath one.
You
application.
Well,
absolutely can do
you
that.
just up level the type, right, where it's records and
city.
records inventory and management for the city of Hudson. We have two distinct needs that fall under that A and B.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think accounting wise that would be more complicated, and I have I'm in direct communication with people inside this grant, agency.
Did you ask them?
I can,
Because that's where it's like, I would rather whatever we're gonna stand a better chance at, because I feel like we do good when we get stuff, and I don't want them to start saying, we've given a lot to Hudson already.
right.
Yeah, especially if we don't want to put it together, though, and say one, we don't want to lose one if they're both together, you know what I mean? So say if it's all or nothing. If it's separate, we might lose one, not get one.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will say there is, that based on my reading, the NOI or the notice of funding, there is no competitive advantage awarded to shared services grants, or, I mean, yeah, so there's nothing point wise that would do that.
I think your contact, whatever they feel would be best, and, see what they say.
And I can put you in touch with our grant writers too, we're working on this.
That'd be great. So that's one thing that has been quietly on my plate, and feels very important. Okay. I think I intended to have some comments specifically about the HCDPA relationship for this section too. I didn't get around to preparing exactly what I wanted to say, and we can talk about that more in the latter section, but there's one thing that's been clear to me from reviewing all these documents is that this agency has always had like a, you know, politically elected board of people that then supervise the work that like professional, like housing professionals do and mobilize. And while it feels, and I've sensed like from different parts of the board or, you know, over time, like it's a little demoralizing, like the sort of the boundaries currently that exist between this board and the HTF, for example. It kind of feels like, what's the purpose of this board if there's this other board or this separation, or the ADLN money, for example, this plan that was created by a separate group of people that then we administered. But if something that's become more clear to me in this process is that seems to be like a longer theme in this agency. And while we have to schlep here once a month to approve bills and things like that, it's so that folks like Michelle can, you know, or people who have like credentials as housing professionals can mobilize plans and like inform us, this board of the work. So just that comment there. I guess that's all I have for this section. Okay, so that's the financial report. After our reconciliation, we have $28,000 in our general account, $28,927.
We're not poor, yeah.
We're not poor. We have 2 checks here for my services for December, and 2 invoices from Chris's office. One sort of catching up. I didn't realize how we were not caught up on the work around the contract with HHA, and then a little bit of general services. So
There was stuff from October that
Yeah.
like, trickled through, yeah.
I went back and looked at the invoices and was like,
But we're
oh,
close, like after today, like, because I went back through the past few minutes, like, we're completely closed for financial year 22, which is good after today.
after today.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
What do we still have?
We still have to cut a check for the Q3, Q4 salaries out of the
Oh, okay,
housing trust fund. Though I think that we approved those expenses in December, and I'm still just waiting for the checks we ordered to come through, so I'm.
got it, okay.
Whoever, if we elected.
No, we had the rider for that. That's the reason that you were supposed to have that resolution for the rider on, right?
Yes, but I thought I did that and. at
Oh,
the
I'm
end-
sorry, that's the other one. Yes, you're right,
We did
you
that
did.
one.
Right, you
Yeah.
just needed the executed contract back from the city, right?
Right,
I have this.
Okay, all right.
That was.
but yeah, we're
December
waiting,
3rd.
we're waiting on the checks, and that's because that leads me up to, what is our Paris filing date?
It'll be the end of March.
Okay. Which is good, so basically we cut those checks and then we're ahead of the game,
Yeah.
it's good.
Have a motion to pay the bills.
All motion,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're gonna turn our attention to the annual resolution. So this was circulated. Chris sent me an email asking if I circulated this. And I'll share my screen. Let's see. And then we are here. Oh wait, that's the agenda.
that's a great size though, I can read that, so,
Let's see.
did we lose our Zoom?
No, we didn't. I just didn't share screen.
Oh, okay.
Apologies, everyone. Can folks on Zoom still see that? That's really just.
And I think it's your other screen because I didn't see your menu on the last screen.
Oh, I see that here, but it's,
It should be this one.
you can see it, right? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. We are present, except Teresa is absent.
Playing the part of Teresa will be Michael Hoffman.
So this resolution. So we have the opportunity to, the mayor appoints the chair. The mayor is automatically the vice chair. The treasurer is, by virtue of our bylaws, goes to the planning commission chair. And then Oh, I guess the mayor is not automatically the vice chair, you can appoint someone, and
Correct.
then we can select a secretary.
Can I volunteer as tribute for something? I'll volunteer for treasurer because I know Teresa does not like playing in that role, so I'm happy to assume that if that's helpful.
That,
Well, is that legal?
it is legal, but we would need to change our bylaws.
Ah,
So it's
okay.
not by virtue of the city. Teresa's position as planning chair makes her a member of this board. and
Could
not-
she appoint?
No, but we could amend the bylaws. Right?
Well, it would be our bylaws, and then do we have to change it at the,
City level, no.
yeah,
I don't
No,
think so.
just your bylaws. You would have to change the bylaws, which we could do for the next meeting if that's something that you want to do.
I'm happy to do it. I know
Yeah.
she's not, like, even if it's just like for this year, you know,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah. Teresa's great. I love working with Teresa. I think she and I have,
She has told me, she was like, don't like this one. It's like, I got it, I got it.
Yeah.
it's not her strength, in terms of like professional experience and,
I'm happy to jump in
Yeah.
if needed,
yeah, I
so.
think that would help.
So my suggestion for today is that you go ahead and appoint Teresa so that you have a treasurer, and then we can put for the next meeting, we can put a resolution up to amend the bylaws, and then at that point, Teresa can resign from treasurer and you can, appoint someone else. Does that make sense procedurally? Okay. And
So I might just do we want to look at the whole resolution
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we start doing that? Okay, so we need to do this. We need to assign a committee or,
We have to go through, as Chris schooled me on the last one. It was, let's go through the whole thing and then approve it in mass at the
right,
end.
okay, yeah. Well, I guess I was saying before, we can look at all the things that we're doing before we go ahead and make positions, unless we want to. You want to make your appointments.
We can go through.
Okay.
And just do it all at once.
Okay. The address stays here at City Hall, and then we need to make members and chairs of the various committees. I didn't have a record of who was the chair of any of these committees from our last meeting when I look back at the minutes, so. There you go. Contracting procurement officer shall be the chair. We define the Register Star as our official newspaper. We can set our new meeting time. We approve the Bank of Greene County as our depository. We will publish this on these policies that we have that are on our bylaws. We ratify those. We're authorizing the chair or the vice chair to implement these matters. Yada yada. So the three sort of choices we have to make is officer positions, committee positions, and meeting time. All right, we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go down the list.
Right.
So is there anyone who is interested in being the chair?
I would like to nominate Ryan only because.
Dear God, wait, is that the wrong response on a public meeting?
First of all, I just want to say this was fantastic with me being the chair. I love every minute of it. But I feel like it's time for me to pass it on to Ryan because now it's his turn to do a bang like I did. I feel like my time has ran out as chair and Ryan.
I'm gonna be
It's time for
high
you to
in the
represent
office
now.
now.
It's time for you to represent, but that's only my nomination.
But does that scuttle our plans, right?
Yeah, so can I nominate Dominic?
Dominic, are you?
Look at his face, he's just like, wait, for
Well, I'm
what?
sorry, what?
Yeah. Nominating you as the chair, my friend.
Okay.
I really, I appreciate it, but I'm good on the number side. This is the one I want to just like mathematically do.
But
Are we all good on Dominic?
Dominic, are you good?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm good on
Don't
that.
look screwed.
And I'll nominate Teresa as well, temporarily Ryan as vice chair, but.
Okay,
Everybody switch.
I'll accept that for now. Yeah, and then we can pivot.
so. We've got Ryan. We need a secretary. Oh, wait, but then the secretary has to be one of these two. So maybe what we have to do is temporarily make Ravonda the vice chair.
Well, actually, temporary, the mayor is the chair because that's what the bylaws say, but you can change that, okay? So my suggestion is that we change the bylaws so that, you know, for those second positions, if you prefer, we can make them subject to approval of the majority of the board in terms of the appointment of officers, if you want. And then at the next meeting, then you could proceed to change. But for now, what your bylaws say is that the treasurer is the planning commission chair, the secretary is either the majority or minority leader, and the vice chair is the mayor, I think, right? No, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Is it an appointment by the mayor? Then maybe you can pick whoever you want for the,
I think we should just, let's go down the list, so the
Yeah.
chair for today's sake would be, myself, vice chair Rhonda.
Dominic, you get to be secretary temporarily, and then treasurer is that, yes. Oh my God, don't change anything. I don't have a role on this. This is great. That's
And
the
then,
first committee that I don't.
and then we gotta go down the committees, because we can.
And nominate Michelle?
Vote on all this at the same time.
You're like, no.
I believe I was on governance.
You and I were governance.
So I'll nominate myself, but I'll nominate Ryan for chair.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so,
Come on,
and,
Ravonda.
okay, do you care about that?
I'll nominate myself for chair of audit, because that'll end up making sense.
That is right, I think, wait,
Yes, Ryan is the chair of. audit.
Yeah, I do audit over finance.
yes, treasurer can
No.
do, the treasurer
No,
has.
treasurer can't do audit.
Yeah,
Oh, then
Treasurer
treasurer
can-
finance. All right, I'll do
You have
finance.
to do finance.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
So who wants to audit?
I'm definitely gonna audit.
Yes.
you wanna.
Ravonda.
I don't want to share
Oh.
that.
Okay, Dominic can chair.
Right.
Ravonda's on it. Sorry, Dominic.
Bless you.
Bless you. This is the joy of like the committee that has like 4 members and needs like 4 per committee.
We have to.
It just,
Mhm.
For sure.
you know, she's gonna come next week or next time and she's gonna be like, what did you all do to me?
Well, she'd be happy with our treasurer, so we can put.
Well,
it
no,
somewhere
but
else.
she temporarily, actually, that'll be the
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
thing. Temporary.
One more member for the finance.
Come on.
It will have to be Don because he's the only one that's named not there twice.
But he can't, can he do audit or no?
Yes, you can,
Okay, then cool, you're on.
okay.
I would like to nominate the Times Union, no, I'm kidding.
Let's just review. Currently, well, okay. Right.
Sarah, could you just quickly run through those nominations then to make sure that that's clear?
Yeah, so right now we have, this is subject to change next meeting, but the chair is currently Kamal Johnson, vice chair is Ravon Smith, secretary is Dominic Moranti, and treasurer is Teresa Turner. And then for our governance committee, we've got Ryan chairing with Kamal and Ravonda as members. For the audit committee, we have Dominic chairing with Ravonda and Teresa as members. And for the finance committee, we have Ryan chairing with Kamal and Dominic.
Thank you.
Like we had the Oscar noms and now this today, it's great.
Here's our big moment, everyone. We have the option to schedule.
Oh,
our-
please, 4:30, any day of the week. Actually, when are our? We're always a Tuesday or are we a Monday and a
You
Tuesday?
can get 4:30 if you become the chair. No.
When are you out? When are you done with, when is like your day done? Usually,
My 4.
Mal,
4:30 is fine with me.
what about you?
4:30 is fine with me.
4:30 would be fine.
4:30 is okay, because I want to make sure you don't have to use time off from work, you're not using time off from work.
I just use my one.
Oh, I just get my boss being like, where the hell are you? So. 30 first Tuesday works,
Early in the month is useful because of
it gets us to be able to, yeah,
bills and such.
Now, are we required to meet here? Because I wonder if we could ever designate like meeting at the library so that like we could also look at the documents together at our meeting.
Oh, I mean, I could always bring some samples of the
Okay.
documents, but, I mean, I can do that next week, yeah. I would think we could look at them, like, we wouldn't put them on screen.
No, but like
Yeah.
that or I'll go over with you because I want to see like the condition that they're in because there's a couple of thoughts that I've got. The Library of Congress actually has really good grants for stuff like that too, that we could.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can go over there and
I'm sitting here Googling, looking up, I'm like, records management.
Word. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. Okay, yes, so I mean, other than that thought, is there any other reason we would want to change the location to another public place?
Well, for now, it's just.
Okay.
Yeah, for now here, Kamal's office.
Thank you for the county.
Yep, that's not
on the
changing.
Website. Great,
Yeah,
great, there we are,
roll call vote, please.
we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
A motion.
Second.
Ooh,
I just saw some later. Okay, Rwanda. Mom, Lisa is absent. Dominic,
Hi,
I guess so.
thank you. Resolution adopted. There we go. All right, I'll stop my sharing my screen. Sorry, takes a second. And
You think Michelle's up?
yeah, I think Michelle is up.
Okay, so big thing is that, Enterprise considers our ALM grant closed out with them.
If any, you're good. Congratulations.
Yeah,
so they're really happy. Actually, we're making like a report about their progress and they're featuring us as one of their big successes. And I met with them this morning and they're, they're happy with how all that stuff. Good job, everybody, team effort. The Housing Trust Fund Board, the big thing we're focusing on is still working on a lot of governance pieces, so we're still drafting our grant guidelines and we have been doing a really good job with our first few drafts, but the big focus the board wanted is to kind of think about the key values and goals this month, and that'll be a big discussion in February about like what do we really want to focus on this week. And thinking about how to best build up the capacity of applicants for the grant. Because that's gonna take some time, a couple of years, I think, to build out the programming of that. So those are some things we're focusing on. The minutes are up on the website. So that's a bit like look at that. Everything else is progressing, all other policy issues and grants. The only other thing, two things I want to bring up. One of them is the city of Ithaca reached out to me. They have an urban renewal agency and they do a lot of programming, and so they said they're happy to meet and kind of talk about some of their work. So I can look through when I meet with them.
Right.
And I just want to get understanding, this may be a Chris question. So the
Can you-
housing trust fund
I can't-
board.
Oh, you might need to come closer.
Okay, so basically, the budget for the housing trust fund that was approved has like a small contingency piece for like materials and stuff like that. And the housing trust fund committee had like informal conversations saying, I think it's fine if there's like a discretionary amount that I don't need to get approval on, if it's things like software, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Like pre-approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of understand what that process is and who figured that out and where the approval comes from.
I'm looking at Chris.
So the approval would have to be part of the MOU with the city. We have an MOU with the city that could be amended to authorize X amount of dollars, approved by the board for XYZ expenditures. You could usually you would have the chair authorized to do that. To authorize expenditure of X amount of dollars within the scope of your procurement policy. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Kamal, Mayor, do you know what is there like a couple $1,000s that a department head is allowed to incur without going through the procurement process, or is that only for retail expense, for like retail type things? You gotta buy some staples.
$1,000, that's what I thought.
It's $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much discretion are we looking for here?
That works. I mean, I need to get Adobe, like some Adobe software. It's like 12, it's between $12 and $20 a month. And then there's just a couple of things every now and then, if events, like community events, I want to get like coffee or.
Well, that, or if like a Nikon conference comes up and it's $120 and you're gonna network there type of thing, like that should be able to be covered, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, you can also, if we put it in the MOU, you can authorize, X amount of dollars to be expended by the city, which would be, approved by the mayor or whatever. That is in accordance with the, procurement policy, but the procurement policy probably is just go buy it at retail if it's, if it's $20 worth of stuff. But they're gonna follow that process. So what we should do is make it a part of the MOU. So then, because the city is acting as administrator for the program, right? So then it's their expenditure, because it's an expenditure that's really for their employees' use, right? In operating the program. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
I guess so.
yeah, so in your position as a member of the executive branch of government that is funded by a grant from this agency or like a
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah, so then I guess the question is like, whose card are you swiping?
Right.
Well, the city, because you don't have a card, right?
Actually,
Right.
we do, but we just have
Yeah.
not brought that in the mix in any way.
Right.
There is a card associated with the housing trust fund account.
Okay, but that's not, we don't, let's talk about that offline, as a
The city
finance
doesn't
matter
have-
with the treasurer, okay? But,
It's an activation.
yeah, let's talk about that. But in the meantime, it should be, I mean, we should follow the process. The city should follow the process that they follow for expenditures and
You'll reimburse.
can authorize a payment to the city of up to X amount of dollars for these types of expenditures. I think that's what you would do.
That sounds
Okay.
good. I'll follow up with our team with that.
And we can do that for the next meeting if the board would like.
Yeah, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is gonna be kind of, it's a quick.
It's
turnaround,
soon, right?
Just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
It's gonna be it's the 14th. So it's.
Oh, it is? Oh, I thought it was the 7th. No?
That is the first Tuesday.
Oh, I thought we were meeting the first Tuesday.
Oh, I thought, sorry.
Because that says we just voted on
We
the
just
first.
voted, it says first Tuesday.
Yeah.
Cool, great, then it's the 7th.
So does that work?
That works for me.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Okay. And then the other thing that I lost track of because this meeting got canceled so much was approving the Hudson routes.
Then it was 9K, didn't we approve them? That was the rest of the ADLN monies to go for rental assistance, right?
So in December, we discussed like extending the rider for the new year and saying that it was gonna be 35,000 for the year of 2023 as one of the housing trust fund programs.
That's right, I have a rider 2 in my inbox from the 9th of January,
Mhm.
but it wasn't properly circulated.
Okay,
So
That's
next
my
meeting.
fault.
okay, at this point, we can wait until
The
the
7th,
7th.
okay,
So,
let me just. I can circulate that right after the meeting, so
Okay.
that's not forgotten.
so yeah, so just to recap, yeah, it's gonna be $35,000 for the year for Hudson Roots. And the Housing Trust Fund Board approved a 5% admin fee out of that. So looking at like, I don't know, $1,300 or something, like 1,500 or 1,700.
At 35,
Yeah,
yeah,
so under $2,000 to administer the $35,000. So.
And so Michelle, I'm sorry, you didn't have any changes to the rider that we prepared for review, right?
No, it's
Okay.
what you had is good.
That's ready to go. All right.
So So we'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, then that's it for me. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Great, everyone. Our last order of business is for the audit committee to come together and consider a quote from the auditor that they have an existing relationship with. They wouldn't send me an engagement letter to review at the time.
I make a motion to suspend the
Reality.
this reality number 1 to go to sub-reality number 2. All in favor? Aye.
Great. Somebody, we just did it. Who are our committee members?
Dominic, that's the one I'm not, this is the only one I'm not on.
The mayor, Ravonda,
Dominic's chair,
and Dominic.
because where I want to get to, I can't be.
So we're doing that meeting now, or we do an idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the audit committee together.
Thank you. Is there any other formalities? I feel like I cut you off.
No, I don't think so. Just call it to order, and then do we have the agenda?
I don't have a full agenda. It's just that UHY is once again returning with a quote of $11,800 for our audit, which is the same as last year, except it actually went up by 100.
That's a little higher.
Do we need a motion to put that into payment, or do we have to pay it now?
It's not to pay now, it's, we would pay it when the audit is, at the end of the audit period.
So-
And Mr. Chair, the audit committee will recommend that to the board. If that's the auditor that you would like to select, then that's what you recommend to the board, and the board actually makes the engagement.
So I would need a motion for the board to accept the company and the amount.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? No, 3 of us.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I only laugh
I
because of
second.
the ridiculousness of the open meetings rules.
Okay, we've now adjourned the meeting. Thank you.
Now imagine doing that. Was it 3 or 4?
Yeah.
3 in a row, right? Of just like,
Okay, that was our last order of formal business, and we can take public comment. Is anyone still?
just Chris.
Could I do some
I thought
clarification?
we just motioned to adjourn.
We moved.
The virtual reality meeting. Now we're back in reality. So now we gotta get a motion, unless Chris has any
Chris, do
comment.
we need to vote on the auditor
Yes.
since we
Yes.
just.
Okay.
So that's.
I'll make a motion to roll call vote on accepting the UHY audit.
I'll second.
Okay, all right.
Aye.
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 Great.
Do you want to play for Teresa? There we go. Done.
Great, thank you. I will let Nicole know.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Can I get a quick clarification to Chris? And I'm sorry, Michelle, I know I spoke about this, but in reviewing the video conferencing, is the Housing Trust Fund a committee of the board here?
Yes, I think that it is. That's the way that we've structured it as a committee under your bylaws. So, yeah, you are expecting them to follow open meetings provisions, and they are a committee that would be then eligible to follow your video procedures as well. But that means that, just like you, they would need a majority of the board present in a room in order to allow anyone to be present by video, other than the public. The public could always be present by video. And your lawyer.
And do your meeting.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, thank you. So the meeting that I spoke at last month, you didn't have a quorum in public, right?
In public, no.
So-
And then we can redo the vote at our February meeting.
Yeah, that's it. There's no
Yeah.
real hold up. So they'll just have to, any resolution. And I'm sorry, it stuck to me because I did come to this meeting, sometimes I
Yeah.
come in
Yeah.
with the mask on, because I'm nervous, but, but, I just thought that if we were committing, I just felt that that was part of the same. So you're under the same as the video conferencing as an open meeting, correct?
I guess that was not. It seems to be the case, so we will follow that.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, and particularly because remember that the way that the board was set up, or the way the committee was set up as part of HCDPA's committee structure is that, they are really given quite a, I mean, the HCDPA's bylaws say that they're supposed to accept recommendations from the Housing Trust Fund Committee, and really they're expected, it says the board shall not make any expenditure from HDF inconsistent with the recommendation of the committee unless, exception. So, it's important that those also be, I think, public meetings, because, they are leading to recommendations that are going to have to be considered by this board. So.
Well, I guess the question, when you said public, they have been public, they've been hybrid, like streaming online and open and public. I think the question is just, do we have to have a physical form in person?
Right, I understand, but since COVID rules were suspended, then we are now under the new open meetings rule, well, the revised open meetings law rules, which say, yes, you can have video conferencing, but only if at least a majority of the members are present in person. So you might want to look at those. I think they're posted on, they should be posted on the website, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, we have to follow those rules for this board, and we would need to follow them for that committee as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
I was second.
Second.
favor,
Bye.
Aye.
thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.